Hello everyone, welcome to my craft table. It is Club Kit release day for Spellbinders, and I'm going to be playing with 3 different clubs in this video. There will be more to come. But first up, I have the clear stamp and die of the month for August. This is called Happy Hello Floral. I love large florals like this, so I was so excited to see this. And it has some beautiful sentiments. There are dies that cut out the whole floral piece if you'd like, or it can cut out just one side. Let me see, this one goes on the left, and it will leave a little bit of a border around this floral piece. And then the second one goes like so. And then there is a die for every single sentiment. I love that. Next up is the stitching die of the month, and it's called Stitched Floral Card Front. Now this introduces kind of a new way to do your stitching, and I'll show you when I start on this card. But you get an A2 sized background die, and then all of these little floral pieces, and then the centerpiece is the sentiment. It just says hi. This is a very clever little set. And then last, I have the 3D embossing folder. And this one is called Stylized Floral. And it has these large blooms on it. Let me see if I can, well, the white paper doesn't really work here. Let me get a darker piece of cardstock so that you can get a better idea of what these florals look like. But look how pretty and detailed these flowers are. I love the lines through the petals. And then you get some greenery and teeny tiny little flowers. And this is the club I'm actually going to start with first for this month. So I have some brown ink. This is going to be my first fall themed card. This is called Cappuccino from Simon Says Stamp. It's one of their positively saturated inks. And I'm working on the smooth side of the folder. And I'm just going to start pouncing the ink on. I'm going to do a larger panel so that I can make 2 cards out of this if I'd like. But I have a piece of white 80-pound cardstock. Put that in the folder, and then I'm going to run it through my embossing machine. And I didn't spray it with water this time. I just wanted the ink, and the ink kind of moistens the paper for you. Let's take a look at how this turned out. It is kind of speckly, but I liked that look, so I'm going to leave it as so. You very well could run it through the embossing machine a second time and just add more ink. But I'm just going to leave it as is. I used a baby wipe to clean off my embossing folder. And now I'm going to do a little bit more ink blending on this panel. I'm using some saltwater taffy for the centers of these big blossoms. I'm using some really small makeup brushes. I ordered these off of Amazon, and they're okay. I just couldn't get my hands on the Spellbinders stencil brushes yet. They always seem to be sold out, but I'll leave a link if they are in the shop. Next, I'll add some seedless preserve to the small flowers on this panel. The brown, the pink, and the purple look really pretty together. It's super easy to add color with these tiny brushes. Here's a close-up look at the finished panel. I'm going to cut this down. It will end up being a little bit smaller than an A2 sized panel. But first I'm going to add some brown latte cardstock onto a white card base. I love this brown color. It's sort of new in the Spellbinders shop. And then next I'll add the panel. I'm using the Spellbinders tape runner to do this. I love this stuff. And then I can center it on the brown cardstock. For a sentiment, I'm going to dip into the clear stamp and die of the month club. But first, let's add a little shading to the white flowers. I thought they looked a little bit too stark white. I'm using another stencil brush and just putting on a little bit more of the Cappuccino ink. I don't want a lot of the ink, so I'm kind of wiping it off on a piece of scrap paper and then bringing it to the embossed panel. Just putting a little bit of shading at the bottom of each petal. I think that little step right there adds a lot. I'm going to stamp out the sentiment with a mocha brown ink. It's just a little bit darker. First one didn't stamp out as dark as I wanted it to, so I'm going to stamp it out one more time. And this says, "Hope all is well with you." I'll use the coordinating die to cut this out. I'll tape it in place, and then I can just snip this out of this white panel and run it through my die cutting machine. This is going down flat with some tape runner, and it looks very subtle. It almost gets lost on this card, but I like this look. You can still see it. To help bring it out just a little bit more, I'm going to be using some gold embellishments. And I'll put 3 of them around the sentiment. And then I realized that I taped the panel onto the card base upside down. So I had to flip my sentiment and the embellishments. But here's a close-up look. I love those soft browns for fall. For card number 2, I'm going to be using the stitching die. And again, this is called Stitched Floral Card Front. I cut out all of the pieces with some white cardstock. And again, I'm going to add a little bit of ink with a stencil brush to the centers of these little pieces. I'll be using some more positively saturated inks. There is the largest flower. And for the leaves, again, I'm not just going to cover up all of the white of the die cut, just adding a little touch of green to the base of each leaf. Spellbinders suggests adding an adhesive sheet to the back of your cardstock and then die cutting all the pieces, but I didn't have my adhesive sheets accessible, so I just used a little bit of tape runner. I taped the back of these and pressed the string into it. Now for the stitching. So there's just one hole that you're going to be stitching in, and then you're going to be wrapping the string or the embroidery floss around the sides of the die cut. I'm using some gold floss, and as you can see, I'm just kind of wrapping it around and then going either up the hole or down into the hole. So it's a different way of stitching. It was really fun. I didn't bother stitching around the leaves. They were a little challenging for me. My thread kept slipping, but again, this gold thread is kind of slippery, so I bet it would be easier with a regular floss. And here's a close-up look at one of the finished flowers. I did tape it in place at the end with a little bit of yellow tape. So that was kind of a fun way of doing the stitching this month. I loved it. I'm going to attach this panel onto a piece of sage green cardstock. I'll use some tape runner as well as some liquid glue around the perimeter of this panel. And then this will perfectly fit an A2 sized card, which is 5.5 by 4.25. I'll go ahead and attach this panel onto the card base. I love this sage green. It's going to be perfect for your fall time cards and even Christmas cards. So when this was finally available in the store, I bought 2 of them just so I have plenty on hand. For the negative space around the high sentiment, I'm going to use the same cheeky ink on the negative pieces. And then I'm going to inlay these around the high sentiment. But first, let's go ahead and put down the sentiment in the center of this panel. Everything is going to go down flat on this card. And now for the negative pieces, and this really helps the sentiment to pop. And it's very easy to puzzle piece in. There's only 2 of them. And then this will coordinate perfectly with the largest flowers. Let's start attaching the flowers, more liquid glue behind them. It helps to kind of hold it up so I can see where it is embossed. to indicate where these flowers go. So there are 4 of the largest flowers, and then I'm going to attach some gold, fashion gold embellishments in the centers of these. These gold pearls did eventually fall off when I had it sitting on my shelf, so I would suggest adding glue behind them. I had to go back and add glue. And here is the finished card. It's just so soft and pretty. I added another gold pearl to dot my eye, and I love that look. For card number 3, we're going in with the clear stamp and die of the month club. This is called Happy Hello Floral, and I'm using some very dark brown ink to stamp this out. This one is called Fallen Leaves from VersaFine Claire. And I want to stamp it out one more time to get it nice and dark. I use this dark brown ink a lot for my fall time card making. It just gives it a softer look than the black ink. And I'm stamping this onto a piece of yellow cardstock from Spellbinders. This one is called Beeswax. So I'm going to pull out my colored pencils. I love coloring on colored cardstock, and I'm going to be doing some very subtle coloring. So for my shadows, I used a very dark brown pencil. Now I'm adding a yellow pencil, and this is just a tad darker than the Beeswax cardstock. So again, it's just going to be a very soft, subtle look. I'll put my shading down at the base of the petals and kind of up the sides a little bit. And then I'll blend that out with this kind of mustard colored pencil. These are my Caran d'Ache Luminescence colored pencils. To color in the buds, I'm going to use pinks. So I'm using a darker pink for the shadows, just again at the bottom of the flower. And then I'm using a really pale pink. It's more of a flesh tone color to blend this out. And as you can see, I'm allowing a lot of the yellow of the cardstock to show through at the tops of these flowers and petals. The greenery stamped out really dark. There's not a whole lot to color. However, I am going to go over them with a very bright green. This just adds another touch of color to the panel. And then the last thing I need to color are the centers of these flowers. And I'm using a dark brown and a light brown just to put a little shading at the side. This will make the centers look more round. Let's go in with a really dark brown just at the very edges of this center. And it just helps it to look really cute and dimensional. So next, I am going to cut this panel out. Here it is all done, but I'm just going to cut out one of the edges of this floral piece. So I'll cut out the left side of this, and I'll tape it in place so it doesn't shift when I run it through my Platinum 6 machine. And again, it will leave a little bit of a border around the edge of those flowers. Okay, here it is. I'm just going to fix that edge. I had to kind of pull it apart at the top. I'm just going to snip the rough edge away. There we go. So this is going to be another A2 sized card. I'm going to add some tape runner and tape this right onto the white card base. I haven't cut out the edges yet, but once this is adhered down, I'm going to flip it over and use my long scissors to trim up the edges. And for the bottom edge, this stamp would be perfect for creating a mini slimline card. I want to do that sometime. Doesn't that look so gorgeous with just the one edge overhanging onto the white cardstock? So I'm going to stamp out the sentiment with the same dark brown Fallen Leaves ink. And again, I stamped Hope All Is Well With You. I love that sentiment. We'll stamp it out one more time to make it nice and dark. And then these are new to the Spellbinders shop. These are called dimensional dots. I love all of the colors and sizes that they have. I'm going to go for this light pink color in this pack. And I'll put a few around the top of the card, but one at the bottom of the sentiment. And then another size onto the yellow cardstock. And then the smallest size I'll put kind of down by one of the petals. And here is a close-up look at card number 3. This was really fun to color in, and it's perfect for your fall cards or even your spring and summer cards. It's very versatile. All of these products will be listed in the description box in case you want to check any of them out. I hope you enjoyed this close-up look at 3 of the new clubs for August. Happy crafting, my friends. Take care. Bye.